Hey everybody, welcome to All Things MSP. Now this is our first Facebook Live show. Now as it shows, I get a little countdown timer here to give people time to come in. Really what I wanted to do here is just kind of play around with the Facebook Live platform and share some information about, today it's going to be about security, but really just wanted to show you guys what you can do with Facebook Live as well as play around with it myself. Now, I am on hotel Wi-Fi this morning, so I'm not sure exactly how well this is going to work, but that's part of the testing, right? And I just happened to be in London today. It's the day after the SolarWinds MSP Empower MSP show, which is great. For those of you who don't know, I work for SolarWinds MSP, was a sales engineer for a long time, sales engineering manager. Now I deal with customer experience. So this All Things MSP kind of came out of my dedication and just passion for pretty much all things MSP. For those of you who don't know, I ran my own MSP for 7 years. Also ran a break fix company for 10. So I have 17 years experience, in the industry, doing what you guys do, both the technical side as well as the marketing, sales, just standard business ownership type stuff. Now, in addition to that, I've got, I've been with SolarWinds MSP, starting with GFI, then going to Logic now being SolarWinds MSP for the past 4 years. So in addition to my knowledge of, the industry in terms of being, a business owner and MSP, I also, know a little bit more now about the channel. I also get the advantage of listening to just hundreds and hundreds of MSPs all the time talk about what they're doing in their business, both from a technical standpoint as well as a business standpoint. So I have a lot to share. That's not just my experience, but the experience of lots of other MSPs. And so let's get started. Now, like I said, I am in London today, so I had to include some type of graphic that would show that I was in London. So there we go, mind the gap. I did get to ride around on the tube somewhat this week during some downtime that we had. So it was fun. Of course, I had ridden the tube years and years ago, and it's to me it seems kind of cleaned up. London itself is beautiful this time of year. It is a little bit cold, but not too bad. It's actually funny. I live in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and the temperatures there at night were actually lower than the temperatures here during the day. So anyway, coming to you live from London, and hope you guys are having a great day. Sorry for those of you back in the US. This is a little bit early, but I do have to catch a plane later on this afternoon, and they probably want me to check out of the hotel at some point. So we're going to do the best we can. Hopefully this is doing well over the hotel Wi-Fi. Not sure, but again, it's one of those things that we wanted to test to see how this live streaming is going to work from the different locations that I may be in from time to time. Okay, so let's go to my next screen, so if you ever need to contact me, you can always reach out via Twitter at EricAnthonyMSP. You can also follow the Facebook page, so just facebook.com/allthingsMSP. We'll get you connected, and we'll be able to interact online that way as well. So I did say that I wanted to talk about layered security today. So we're going to talk a little bit about layered security, and then I actually have a presentation that I created that would be ideal for you to put in front of your clients. And that presentation is free. It'll be available. All you have to do is ping me either on Twitter or on Facebook, and I will get that presentation out to you for the simple low price of just your email address. So that I can start building up just a follower list for this show as well as the blog. If you don't know, I also have blog.allthingsmsp.com where you can go, and I've written articles and things on technical as well as business topics, just like we talked about in terms of being all things MSP. So again, that website address is blog.allthingsmsp.com. Okay, so let's transition over to the PowerPoint slide real quick. Okay, now hopefully you guys can see that. And the whole idea here was to create a set of slides that you guys could put in front of customers to basically explain what layers you want to put in place. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's the list that I would probably use if I was an MSP these days. And of course, it probably does lean towards the SolarWinds MSP offerings just because that's what I'm familiar with. Now, let me switch over. Now, what I would recommend is that you use different slides for different things. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. People want to know who you are and what your credentials are. So make sure that they know that. Obviously here, I've got a computer engineering degree. I've been an IT consultant for 17 years. If you have some IT experience, that sometimes applies as well, because if you know their business, they're more likely to do business with you. And then, combined 30 plus years providing IT support to small and medium-sized businesses, just your overall experience as well is very important there. And then we can transition into, the threat landscape. We don't want to really use fear, uncertainty, and doubt as a selling tool because it's kind of negative. So what we want to do is we want to just make them aware of the different types of things that are out there that they could be vulnerable to, so that they know why we're trying to employ these different levels of security. Now, some statistics, because those analytic types are always going to want to see numbers, and so these numbers will help give you some of that information. And then the argument that I used to always get was that my business is too small to be attacked. Well, we know that that's no longer true. Cyber criminals are targeting the tiniest of businesses these days simply because they can. The level of automation that these things have been able to provide for these cyber criminals, criminals who don't even know technology can now purchase these tools and use them in mass attacks against small businesses and still be profitable at it. So we want to make sure that we are giving our customers the right protection. And the other thing is, you also want to remember that they may be a vector into a larger company. We saw that with the HVA systems, or HVAC systems with Target, right? That was the vector to get into their credit card machines. So layered security obviously is the solution, because no one security solution is going to be a fix-all. In fact, at the end of the day, your last layer of security is going to be backup, because we can never depend 100% on all the different layers of security. So I want to talk about that for a minute, and just so you guys aren't looking at slides the whole time. The layered security model is really important just because there's different perimeters that these threats can come in, and there's different things in terms of social engineering that you can't always block. So you have to have the different layers to protect your customer, educate your customer, and then finally, in the end, if all things fail, you need to make sure that you can recover their data to make sure that their business runs continuously. So that layered security model is really important. And what we want to do now is we'll talk about some of the different layers there. So let me get back to my slide deck here. And layer one, I think, is just to know where the data is. Know what systems you have, where the data is, how it's protected, who has access, are they up to date, all of those things that you really need to know about the systems before you can even start protecting them. Because you need to know what you're protecting before you can try and protect it. Now, the product that SolarWinds MSP has, obviously, to help you with this is Risk Intelligence. Risk Intelligence will go through the systems and find that valuable data, whether it be credit card data, PII, personally identifiable information, PHI, personal health information. It can find that and tell you where it is and who has access to it. And that way, you can make sure you can consolidate it as much as possible so that you have a smaller footprint to protect, but also who has access so you can tighten up the security on access to that data. Because if they're on public shares, obviously you want to modify that a bit to get to a more secure place. Now, the other place where risk intelligence really helps out, in my opinion, and actually helps you on a recurring revenue basis, is doing continuous or periodic scans on risk intelligence. Because what you want to do is you want to be able to have notifications of when that data moves. So if, say an accounting person takes all of the payroll data and puts it on their laptop to take it home, you want to know that that data now exists in a copy on their laptop, and that's now a vulnerable situation. You need to be watching those situations for your customer. And layer 2, so the outermost perimeter and the one most likely to be taken advantage of by social engineering attacks, like the most recent ransomware things that we've been seeing, is email. So you want to employ a good system for being able to filter out spam as well as viruses. Now, ransomware will not always show up as a virus, because sometimes it's just to a link to download the virus. So it's not always going to be caught as a virus, but most often it will be caught as spam, because we're pretty good these days at being able to recognize spam pretty quickly, because we see the same message being sent to lots of different domains, and there's lots of different things we can do to catch that these days. So getting that spam and those viruses filtered out of the email before it ever gets to your servers is vitally important. And it's actually important to filter it out before it gets to your servers for an additional reason. It saves bandwidth on your server. So if you're still hosting Exchange locally, it will help with your ISP connection. Also, if it's simply filtered into their spam mailbox in, say, Office 365 or another type of hosted Exchange, they're still going to have access to it. They can still go into their spam folder and open that email up and potentially infect themselves. The other thing that most email filtering products will also offer is an email continuity piece. And email has become just important, in my opinion, as phones, because if you can't get email, your business is, practically off the grid. People can't contact you. They're used to contacting you by email now and not using the phone, and they assume that you're going to get that email. So email continuity is another piece, an extra piece. I'm not even going to call it a layer because it's not really security related, but it is business continuity related. And then layer 3, web filtering. So obviously this is going to keep malicious traffic off your network, and there's going to be two types of this. You're going to have physical firewalls, which are obviously going to keep people out of your network as a whole, but I also believe that you need web filtering on the individual endpoints themselves. Reason being is that those endpoints can move outside of the network, and as soon as they move outside of the network, they're no longer protected by that firewall. So web filtering is a very important layer to put on those endpoints as well as the network itself. And of course, antivirus. Don't need to go into this much, but antivirus, critically important. It's a compliance issue for most of those businesses that have to deal with HIPAA or PCI. You have to have some type of antivirus and the ability to report on that antivirus as well. So important to show that step to your clients. And the important thing and the selling point to clients there is that you're managing it. Okay, you're monitoring it. You know when it goes up and down. You know when definitions are out of date, and you can take care of that. Plus, you have the ability to create those combined reports for them that help with their compliance. And this is something that they normally can't do with just a standalone off-the-shelf antivirus, or one that maybe comes on the device itself when they purchase it. Now, of course, patch management. A lot of the vulnerabilities that are used in the malware, crypto variants, and viruses in general are things that can be stopped simply by patching software. It's important to tell them how many applications you patch. It depends on what product you're using, but typically you're going to want to make sure that the operating system is patched, their major applications are patched, as well as anything that has to do with a web browser. So the browsers themselves, as well as any plugins like Adobe PDF, Flash, all of those things should be patched and up to date all the time. And this allows you to give them reporting on it as well if you're using an RMM tool. And then when all else fails, backup. So you want to make sure that you have good backup for your customers, that you can quickly restore files when they need it. And if, all heck breaks loose and everything's gone, a way to get their entire system back into place quickly and easily so that they can get back into business. Because that's the whole point here, right, is business continuity. Security is the problem, but business continuity is what we're trying to solve for. We don't want a security breach to cause them to have an issue with business continuity or have it cost them money. And that's the money piece. I'll go back to risk intelligence for just a second in case you guys don't know. One of the great things about risk intelligence is it will actually assign a dollar amount to their data. So in case they're breached, it'll actually tell you how much risk and how much dollar amount in remediation they could be liable for if they let personal information or credit card information out for their customers. Okay, then of course we're going to take questions, things like that. In fact, speaking of questions, I will look, and it looks like we don't have any questions yet. Let me switch back so that you guys aren't looking at the slide deck too long. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is GDPR. Now, GDPR, of course, over here in Europe is extremely important because they obviously fall directly under GDPR. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you have customers that are in the, if you're in the States, if you're operating an MSP in the States and you have customers that some of their customers are in the EU, then they have to comply with GDPR as well. Because a lot about GDPR has to do with the protection of the rights of the individual user. And if that user is an EU citizen, then technically, according to their regulations, you fall under the jurisdiction of GDPR. Now, of course, this is kind of a thing in motion, and so we'll really see what happens come May of 2018. But a lot of ramping up to GDPR, a lot of things to look into and be aware of as you start transitioning from MSP to MSSP. Now, some people have asked me what's the difference between an MSP and an MSSP? So, just in nomenclature, it's a managed security services provider. And a lot of people kind of considered that just kind of a marketing thing, right? Oh, well, you just added another S in there in the word security and, now you do security. Well, yes and no. The problem is we've done some research at SolarWinds MSP and found out that customers actually look at that. And if they look at the fact you're saying you're an MSSP, they actually think you're more of an expert in security. So you may want to consider adding MSSP as one of the things that you do to make sure that people understand that you're really doing security, you're dedicated to it, you're not just there to make sure the machines are running and that QuickBooks stays running, you're there to make sure they're protected as well. Now, people ask me about credentials. There's a lot of credentials out there. There's not really a credential for MSSP, but Security Plus and some of those other CISO, all of those different credentials will help you build credibility as well as education. You need to really get yourself educated on all of these security things and then be able to educate your customers as well. So hopefully you'll be able to use this slide deck and be able to educate some of your customers in terms of what the different layers are and why they need them. But also, you need to teach them about the social engineering aspect of all of these different things, because the social engineering aspect, especially when it comes to the crypto variants that are invading through emails and downloads, those are really the most important thing. If we can keep our end users from clicking on those things, we will do much better in terms of keeping them from clicking on the things that they shouldn't be. Okay, I'm going to see if there are any more questions. And I was afraid of that because, doing this early in the day and doing it on a day when a lot of people are traveling back from the Empower MSP event, I figured I probably wouldn't get too many. So I've got some comments, but no real questions. So I think we're going to go ahead and end it there. Thanks, guys. I think this has gone well. Would love to hear your feedback about what you think about the slide deck, what you think about doing these All Things MSP live shows. I really am interested in hearing if they're valuable to you. Would really be willing to do them as a Q&A format as well. I knew that this would not be a great time to do a Q&A format, but I wanted to test the system and see how the quality was and all of that. So hopefully it looks good. Hopefully this is going to be helpful to you. If you want a copy of the slide deck, please just reach out to me on blog.allthingsmsp.com and just follow the blog or send me your email address through Twitter at EricAnthonyMSP, and I will get you that slide deck right away. Of course, not today because I'll be traveling, but I'll be back in the office tomorrow, so I'll be able to send it to you then. Okay, well, until then, thanks, guys, for joining me. For those of you who did join me, thanks to those who will watch this later. And if you have any other questions or any other comments in regarding this format or how you think I should proceed with the live video format, please let me know. I'm very interested in doing what's of value to you and want to just continue the conversation on All Things MSP. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.